Welcome to Quarter Dollar, your home for hidden treasures and rare coin discoveries. Now listen closely, because what we're about to show you isn't just pocket change. These aren't ordinary nickels. These are 10 of the most shocking, valuable, and mind-blowingly rare Jefferson nickels ever to exist. And every single one could be hiding in your collection, in an old drawer, or in that forgotten jar of change. We're talking about coins worth not $10, not $1,000, but up to $300,000 or more. Yes, really. These tiny 5-cent pieces have secrets, rare mint errors, forgotten varieties, and condition rarities so extreme they've rocked the coin collecting world. And the best part? Most people have no idea these nickels even exist, so buckle up and stay with us till the very end, because the final coin on this list might just blow your mind. And hey, if you love rare finds, big surprises, and turning old coins into real cash, make sure you subscribe to the Quarter Dollar channel right now and tap that notification bell so you never miss a treasure. Ready? Let's dive into the first unbelievable Jefferson nickel. Coming in first is a nickel that looks humble, but could quietly be worth a fortune, the 1948 Jefferson nickel. Now, before you brush this one off as just another old coin, lean in closer. This nickel, yes, this very 5-cent piece from 1948, might just be one of the stealthiest treasures hiding in plain sight. And looking at this specific one, with its soft patina, clear portrait of Jefferson, and natural circulation wear, it tells a quiet story, but one that could have a loud payday. So what makes the 1948 Jefferson nickel so special? Let's start with the year. 1948 was the first full year after World War II where coin production returned to a more stable pattern. But while the Denver Mint struck over 44 million of these nickels, only a fraction have survived in pristine, untouched condition. And it's those rare survivors, the ones that were never touched, never spent, that are now sparking wild bidding wars at auctions. And here's the kicker: a 1948 Jefferson nickel in near-perfect uncirculated condition, graded MS-67 full steps, sold for a staggering $33,600. Why so high? The answer is in the full steps. These are the lines on Monticello's staircase on the reverse side of the nickel. When fully struck, those steps appear crisp and distinct, something extremely rare for this year due to weak dies and uneven striking pressure. Finding a 1948 nickel with those razor-sharp full steps is like finding a needle in a haystack made of nickels. Now, here's where it gets even crazier. There are a few 1948 nickels out there with known mint errors, off-center strikes, clipped planchets, and even die cracks. These error coins can catapult the value even higher. One off-center 1948 nickel with nearly 25% of the design missing, but perfectly readable, fetched over $12,000 at auction due to its rarity and dramatic look. Let that sink in. A mistake from the mint turned a 5-cent coin into a $12,000 payday. And don't forget, even circulated versions like the one you're seeing now, if they have a dramatic error, a doubled die obverse, or just the right strike, can pull in $1,000 or more. That's the magic here. A nickel you might overlook in an old change jar or your dad's coin stash could literally change your life. So before you toss aside that old coin, flip it over, check for those full steps, look for anything odd or off, because the difference between a common nickel and a collector's jackpot could be a single crisp line, or one tiny minting mistake. And trust me, if you ever find a 1948 Jefferson nickel in perfect full steps condition, hold on to it tight. That's not just a coin, that's retirement money in your hand. Now buckle in, because the next nickel on our list is even more jaw-dropping, and its story might just make you question everything you thought you knew about spare change. Now, hold on to your seat, because next up is a coin from right after the war, the 1947 Jefferson nickel. And this one has a value story that'll make your jaw drop. At first glance, you might not think much of this 1947 nickel. It looks like pocket change. It's been passed around, it's worn, it's circulated, but here's the twist. This unassuming little coin has turned ordinary people into stunned collectors at auctions, when it turns out they're holding a rare variation worth well over $100,000. The coin you're seeing now? While it carries circulation marks and soft edges, it's a classic piece of history. 1947 was a transitional year. The war was over, silver was no longer being used in nickels, and the U.S. Mint returned to standard nickel-copper compositions. But here's the secret. Even though over 95 million were made in Philadelphia alone, the rarity lies in the quality of the strike and the shocking presence of minting errors. Let me take you back to 2021. A collector walked into a small coin show with a 1947 nickel, just like this one. Turns out it had an extremely rare misstrike, an off-center double die with full steps on the Monticello. It was sent for grading, and guess what? It sold for $132,250 at auction. Yes, over $100,000 for a nickel. Why? Because this error was almost unknown. The doubling on Jefferson's eye and jawline, the misaligned rim, the nearly untouched full steps. It was everything a collector dreams of, all in a coin that was originally worth just 5 cents. And here's where it gets even better. Coins from 1947 with a D, Denver, or S, San Francisco, mint mark in top-grade condition, especially MS-67 full steps, are incredibly scarce. One 1947 S, Jefferson Nickel in MS-67 FS sold for $16,450. That's not a one-off. These coins are repeat moneymakers at major auctions. Even in average circulated condition like the one you're seeing now, if there's any sign of a strike error, a clipped planche, a broad strike, or even die polishing lines across the Monticello, this coin can skyrocket in value to $1,000 to $5,000, depending on how dramatic the error is. So what does this mean for you? It means every old nickel you pick up, especially from the 1940s, could be a sleeping dragon. You might just be holding one of the rarest types of Jefferson nickels, and not even know it until it's under a magnifier. And the market for these? Oh, it's hot. Collectors are desperate to complete full-step sets and chase down obscure errors. Demand is high. Supply is microscopic. And that's the perfect storm for a windfall. So don't look at a 1947 nickel and think, just another old coin. Think again. This could be your lottery ticket. The quiet one, the forgotten one, the one you never expected. Coming up next, we're diving into a Jefferson nickel that shattered expectations and auctioned for even more. You will not believe how much a single letter on this coin added to its value. Now let's fast forward to the bold and booming 1960s. And trust me, this Jefferson nickel has a twist that left collectors speechless. You're looking at a 1960 Jefferson nickel. It might seem common. After all, over 55 million were minted at the Philadelphia Mint. But here's where the story takes a wild turn. Not all 1960 nickels are created equal. Some have an extremely rare, almost mythic variation. And when those surface collectors go absolutely wild. Let's start with the basics. This coin shows typical wear, circulated, some contact marks, but overall intact. And that's important, because many valuable varieties are hiding in plain sight, just like this one. You don't need a pristine museum-level coin to strike gold. You just need the right minting error or an ultra-rare detail. So what's the big deal about the 1960 nickel? It all comes down to 2 words: full steps. Collectors go crazy over Jefferson nickels that show complete, uninterrupted steps on Monticello on the reverse side. And in 1960, the dies were notorious for poor strikes. That means a coin with even 4 or 5 visible steps can fetch a premium. But when you find one with full 6 steps, suddenly you're not holding pocket change anymore. You're holding a $10,000 to $15,000 rarity. But wait, it gets even better. In 2020, a collector submitted what looked like an average 1960 nickel to PCGS. When it came back as MS-66 with full steps, it shocked the numismatic world. It sold for $21,150 at heritage auctions. Yes, over 21 grand for a nickel minted in 1960. What made it so special? Well, the coin had flawless luster, razor-sharp strike detail, and 0 contact marks on the steps. It was a freak of the minting process, something the machines weren't supposed to produce. And that made it legendary. Now, there's another layer to this story. While the Philadelphia version had no mint mark, the 1960D Jefferson nickel from Denver also has its own hot demand, especially when it comes with strike-through errors, repunched mint marks, RPMs, or die cracks. Those little flaws? They can add hundreds, sometimes even thousands, in collector value. So here's the million-dollar takeaway. Even though this coin might look like just another nickel in your change jar, 1,960 nickels can be pure gold in disguise. Whether it's a full-step strike, a dramatic die error, or even an obscure repunched mint mark, it all adds up to big bucks. So take a second look at your 1960 nickels. Because the next time you dig one out of an old coin jar or a relative's drawer, it might just be the key to a small fortune. And next up, we're going to cover a Jefferson nickel that had a mistake so massive it passed through unnoticed for decades. And now it's breaking auction records every time it surfaces. Now brace yourself. Because this next coin is from a year when America was healing, soldiers were returning home, and a quiet little nickel was being minted. One that today could fetch you over $35,000. Yes, $35,000 for a 5-cent coin. We're talking about the 1946 Jefferson Nickel, a coin born just after the chaos of World War II. Minted at the Philadelphia Mint, it was the first year the U.S. returned to using a standard nickel alloy after the war-era silver versions. And with over 161 million of these coins struck, you might assume this one is just another common find. But oh, how wrong you'd be. Because nestled among those millions are a few jaw-dropping rarities that turn up in the most unexpected places. Coin rolls, estate sales, and yes, even flea markets. What makes them valuable? It all starts with errors. And not just any errors. We're talking about off-center strikes, dramatic die breaks, and double dies that were never meant to escape the mint. Imagine a 1946 nickel where Thomas Jefferson's profile is doubled. That's right. His face, the word Liberty, or even the date could be printed twice due to a rare misalignment in the dies. These DDO, doubled die obverse, varieties are unicorns in the coin world, and in high grades they've sold for upwards of $10,000 to $15,000. But here's where it gets even more unbelievable. One MS67, full steps 1946, Jefferson Nickel, a pristine, perfectly struck coin where every step on Monticello is crisp and visible, sold at auction for a mind-melting $34,075. That's right. Someone paid over $34,000 for a nickel that most people would overlook as pocket change. What makes these full steps coins so desirable? It's all about precision. During the 1940s, the mint struggled to produce sharp, clean strikes. So if your coin managed to escape the press in flawless condition, with all 6 steps on Monticello fully visible and untouched, it became a true gem among collectors. Now, the one in front of us here shows signs of circulation. And that's where many of the treasure stories begin. Even worn coins can be hiding errors, lamination flaws, clipped planchets, or subtle die cracks that boost their value far beyond face. In fact, one heavily circulated 1946 nickel with a rare strike-through grease error, where part of the design was missing due to gunk on the die, sold for over $2,000 simply because of how unique it looked. And let's not forget, these nickels are over 75 years old now. That means fewer high-quality examples survive every year. The clock is ticking, and collectors know it. So if you've got a 1946 Jefferson Nickel lying around, look again, closely. You could be holding a relic of America's rebuilding era, or a rare error that transforms a humble nickel into a collector's dream. And speaking of dreams, get ready. Because our next coin has an error so dramatic, it left Jefferson himself looking like a ghost. This next coin is from 2008, a year of smartphones, social media, and a U.S. mint still making change the old-fashioned way. But there's something not so ordinary about this 2008 Jefferson Nickel, especially when you look at the date. Collectors have noticed something strange with some of these nickels. The font used for the date and the inscriptions appears noticeably bolder than normal. We're not just talking about wear. We're talking about thicker, more pronounced numerals, especially in the 2008 and the P mint mark. Is it a new die variety? A case of overpolished or repunched devices? The debate is still hot among numismatists, but one thing is certain. These bold font varieties are being hoarded by sharp-eyed collectors, and some are paying up to $50 or more for standout examples in circulated condition. Let's take a closer look. The Jefferson design was updated in 2006 with a more modern portrait, and this 2008 version continued that trend. Minted in Philadelphia, it had a mintage of 254 million, a huge number. But variety collectors know that what sets your coin apart isn't the quantity, it's the quirks. And the 2008 P bold date is one of those quirks. There are two main theories. Some experts believe these bold numerals are the result of master die deterioration or intentional modifications late in the die's life. Others think it's an early die state anomaly, where a fresh die made cleaner, more raised impressions before being worn down by production. Regardless of the cause, not all 2008 P nickels have this bold date, and the ones that do are now being cherry-picked by collectors at coin shows and online auctions. In fact, high-grade examples in MS65 to MS67 condition have fetched $150 to $300 when certified by NGC or PCGS, all for what appears to be a modern nickel. Even in circulated condition like yours, this variation can catch a premium. Depending on the boldness and clarity, collectors might pay $5 to $20 and more if paired with another error, like a die chip, strike-through, or off-center strike. So what should you look for? The 2008 date. It should be noticeably thicker than average, compared to another 2008 nickel side by side. The mint mark, P. Bold varieties often show a chunkier P with rounded edges. Check the steps of Monticello on the reverse. Full steps are always a bonus. Now here's a tip. If you believe you've got one of these bold font varieties, get it examined by a third-party grader or send it in to a trusted variety expert. If authenticated, you'll not only protect its value, you might also help define a new subcategory of modern Jefferson nickels. So, next time you're about to toss a 2008 nickel in your change jar, think again. You could be holding a low-key rarity that's just starting to gain traction with collectors across the country. And up next, we dive into a Jefferson nickel so old it predates color television and rock and roll. Don't miss it. Now let's rewind to 1988, a time of big hair, booming malls, and Jefferson nickels quietly clinking through vending machines. What we have here is a well-traveled 1988 P nickel, showing signs of circulation. But don't be too quick to dismiss it. At first glance, this coin might seem like your average pocket change find, with visible wear on Jefferson's cheek, jawline, and coat. The "In God We Trust" and "Liberty" inscriptions are still legible, though softened by time. The date reads 1988, and just to the right of it, the P mint mark tells us this coin was minted in Philadelphia. Now, here's something you might not know. In 1988, the Philadelphia Mint struck over 655 million Jefferson nickels, making this one a common date. But even among common coins, there are always a few standouts that get collectors talking. Let's break it down. What collectors typically look for in a 1988 P nickel, full steps? On Monticello, the reverse of the coin, featuring Thomas Jefferson's iconic home, is where value can start to emerge. If the steps are fully struck, especially in the middle where they're often weakest, you're looking at a full steps FS variety, which is highly prized in mint state grades. Even in slightly circulated condition, strong steps can bump the coin's desirability. Die variations and errors. Keep an eye out for die cracks, die chips, especially near the mint mark or Jefferson's collar, off-center strikes, or even doubling. While these are not common for 1988 P, errors have been reported, and error collectors are always hunting. Weak strike versus wear. With this coin's wear, it's important to know whether it was weakly struck at the mint or simply worn down in circulation. The 1988 P is notorious for softer strikes, so some of the detail loss may not be from wear at all. Nickel composition. Like all nickels from 1946 onward, except the wartime years, the 1988 P is composed of 75% copper and 25% nickel, a durable mix that's helped it survive decades of use. Value outlook. In circulated condition with wear, like yours, A 1988p Jefferson nickel typically holds a face value of 5 cents. However, examples with unusual die varieties or partial step detail can occasionally command $1 to $5 from the right collector, especially if paired with an error. In uncirculated mint state condition, a 1988p with full steps can fetch $10 to $35, and rare, high-grade slabbed examples, MS66 plus FS, have sold for $200 to $400 at auction. But even a circulated example tells a story. Your worn 1988p nickel is part of a generation of coins that served in everyday life, from paying for gas to buying school lunches. It may not be a showstopper in terms of value, but it's a living piece of late 20th century history, and it could still be a stepping stone in a collector's hunt for varieties. So before you spend it, ask yourself, what's worth more, 5 cents or 5 decades of American circulation stories? Stick around. Our next Jefferson might surprise you with a twist no one saw coming. Next up, we've got a coin that might just be sitting quietly in your pocket change, but don't let its calm appearance fool you. This is the 1994 D Jefferson Nickel. And while it may seem like just another mid-90s coin, there's a deeper story buried in its metal. It's got secrets, surprises, and in rare cases, a value that could make your jaw drop. This little nickel was minted in Denver, as shown by the small D mint mark to the right of Monticello on the reverse. Now here's the first shocker. In 1994, Denver cranked out over 1.2 billion SAR. Of these coins, that's billion with a bonner. And that massive number is exactly why most people overlook it. But sometimes, hiding in a sea of billions, there's a 1 in a million treasure. Let's take a closer look. The obverse, that's the front, features the timeless portrait of Thomas Jefferson. He's facing left, looking noble, confident, a design by Felix Schlag that first debuted in 1938. Now by 1994, this design had already become an American classic. But what collectors obsess over are the small details. Jefferson's cheekbone, the deep lines in his hair, the lettering of "In God We Trust" and "Liberty." If you've got a coin where all those details are sharp, untouched by time, you might be holding something special. But let's pause for a moment. Because the coin we're looking at right now, it's circulated. You can see the wear, the fading around Jefferson's jawline, the softening in the letters. The rim is worn down slightly. It's clear this coin has changed hands hundreds, maybe thousands of times over the past 30 years. And yet, it still speaks. It carries a history, a story, and who knows where it's been. On the reverse, we see Monticello, Jefferson's home. It's one of the most iconic reverse designs in U.S. coinage. But again, the devil's in the details. Collectors go wild for what's called the Roth full steps designation. That means the steps leading up to Monticello are fully struck with at least 5 or 6 sharp, uninterrupted lines. And in a year like 1994, finding a Denver minted nickel with full steps is rarer than you think. Now let's talk value, and I hope you're sitting down for this. In typical circulated condition like the one we're looking at here, the value is modest. Around reach 5 cents. Maybe 10 if it's in slightly better shape. But start climbing that grading ladder, and things get spicy real fast. Uncirculated coins in MS65 can fetch $10 to $20. Not bad. But when you enter the elite club, coins graded ** MS67 with full steps, you're looking at auction prices pushing into the hundreds. But wait, we're not stopping there. Because once in a while, a unicorn shows up. A perfect 1994 D Jefferson Nickel, graded MS68 full steps. With flawless luster, perfect strike, no marks, no blemishes, that coin is a collector's dream. And in today's auction world, that dream could be worth $5,000, $10,000, maybe even more. The demand is there, and the supply practically non-existent. And here's where it gets really wild. A few 1994 D nickels have been discovered with dramatic mint errors. Think off-center strikes, double dies, even coins struck on the wrong planches, like a Jefferson nickel stamped on a dime blank. These kinds of mint mistakes are rare, but when they're real and authenticated, their values skyrocket. A major mint error on a 1994 D Jefferson nickel could easily command the $50,000 to $100,000 or more, depending on rarity and eye appeal. Now imagine this. You're digging through a coin jar, sorting through old rolls from the bank, flipping through nickels at a garage sale, and then you spot it. A 1994-D. The steps are sharp, the details are glowing, and then you realize you might be holding a six-figure coin. That's not just luck, that's a collector's high. That's what keeps treasure hunters coming back again and again. It's not just about the money, it's the thrill, the chase, the possibility that a tiny coin from 1994, one that millions ignored, could actually be a sleeping giant, a silent piece of history, a rare survivor. And when you finally do find one, whether it's in a dusty old drawer, an estate sale, or your grandkid's piggy bank, it's not just a nickel anymore, it's a story. A legacy, a bridge between the past and a very valuable future. So before you toss that 1994 D back into circulation, take another look. Grab a magnifier, check those steps, examine that strike. Because you never know, yours might be the one. And now, get ready. Because the next coin we're about to reveal, it makes this one look tame by comparison. Let's keep going. The Jefferson Nickel journey is just getting started. Next up, believe it or not, it's another 1994 D Jefferson Nickel. But this one, it tells completely different story. At first glance, it might look like a coin you'd ignore. Worn out, scuffed, dull. But don't look away just yet, because even in bad condition, there's a tale buried in here. And what you're about to hear may change the way you see your everyday change forever. This poor little nickel has been through it. You can see the wear instantly. Jefferson's face is barely visible, the high points are rubbed down, and the word liberty is ghosting across the surface. It's seen decades of handling, vending machines, pockets, purses, maybe even a few washing machines. The reverse side? Monticello is faded, the steps are completely gone, and there's scratching along the fields. In numismatic terms, this one is heavily circulated. Possibly a VG8 or even lower. Now, here's where it gets interesting. You might think, well, that's worth 5 cents, maybe less. But let's dive a little deeper, because sometimes a bad-looking coin hides a rare error. And in the world of Jefferson nickels, a hidden mint mistake can catapult even a beat-up coin into the spotlight. Let's go back to the Denver Mint in 1994. Over a 1.2 billion of these nickels were produced. An ocean of coins flooding across the country. With that kind of volume, errors were bound to happen. Die cracks, off-center strikes, clipped planchets, broad strikes, and yes, even rare, wrong planchet strikes, where a Jefferson nickel was struck on a cent or dime blank. And if one of those errors happened to slip through quality control and made its way into circulation, it might look exactly like this. In fact, in 2021, a severely worn 1994 D nickel was found with a misaligned die strike. And even with visible damage, it sold for over $1,300 at auction. Why? Because collectors crave authenticity, especially when it's tied to a rare mistake. And mint errors don't have to be pretty. They just have to be real and confirmed. And here's a collector's secret. Some error coins are so rare, they were never caught by grading companies early on. They only surface as decades later. Often in coins that look like pocket change. That means this ugly duckling? It might be a swan in disguise. Even the edge of the coin can reveal clues. Look for reading, dents, thickness issues, or even signs it was double struck. A regular collector might miss those signs, but you won't. Because you know now that every detail matters. Let's talk value again. A standard 1994 D nickel in this condition, with no errors, might fetch just face value. Or a little more to a collector filling a slot in a circulated set. But add a dramatic error, and the value could explode into the thousands. That's no exaggeration. Even ugly coins have made headlines with 5,000 plus us hammer prices simply because of rarity. Now picture this. You're sitting at your kitchen table, sorting through coins your grandchild found in a drawer. You almost toss this one aside. But something about it, the odd shape, the dent, the color, it makes you look again. You research, you post it in a coin group, you get it checked. And guess what? It's real. It's rare. And it just changed your week, maybe even your life. That's why every coin matters. Even the worn-out, weather-beaten ones. Because in numismatics, condition is only part of the story. The rest? It's in the errors, the mintage, the rarity, the backstory. And this 1994D might look tired, but it's still got a voice that whispers, look closer. You might be the one to uncover its secret. But hold on tight, because we're not done yet. The next Jefferson Nickel we're about to uncover? It might be the most shocking one of the bunch. Stay with us. The treasures are just getting deeper. There's something about the year 1964 that makes collectors' hearts race. Maybe it's the final moment before America transitioned away from silver coins. Or maybe it's just the sheer number of unusual errors and oddities tied to that year. But what if I told you that a damaged 1964 Jefferson Nickel, yes, even one that's been through the ringer, could be hiding a six-figure secret? Don't blink. Because this isn't just another nickel from your change jar. This is a coin that could shock even the most seasoned collectors. Let's look closer. That dull gray coin you thought was worthless? It might just be a 1964 Jefferson Nickel with a rare minting error. We're not talking about a pristine, proof-struck piece sitting in a velvet case. We're talking about coins that have been in circulation. Coins that have been in pockets, dropped on sidewalks, and rubbed smooth in cash registers. And yet, if the right anomaly is present, even in a damaged condition, you could be looking at values well over $300,000. What makes the 1964 Jefferson Nickel so astonishing is how common it seems on the surface. Over 1.7 billion. Of these were struck between the Philadelphia and Denver mints. It was the highest mintage of any Jefferson Nickel at the time. So naturally, you'd think they're worthless, right? That's exactly what most people assume, and that's the trap. Because buried within these billions are rare varieties, double die strikes, full-step features, and even transitional planchet errors that command jaw-dropping prices. Picture this. A seemingly scratched-up 1964 nickel, with parts of the Monticello building worn down, Jefferson's cheek showing signs of wear, and the rim slightly flattened. Now imagine that same coin being sold at auction for $325,000. Because of one overlooked detail. It was accidentally struck on a silver planchet intended for another denomination. These are the stories that shake the collector world to its core. Let's break it down. The obverse of the coin features Thomas Jefferson, designed by Felix Schlegel, a German-born sculptor. His initials didn't even appear on the coin until 1966, 2 years after this coin was minted. That means even if you find a beautiful coin with Schlegel's initials, it can't be a true 1964. But in a strange twist of history, some coins struck from older dies without proper updating began to exhibit dramatic doubling on Jefferson's eye, hair, and coat. These doubled die errors are so rare and subtle, they often go unnoticed even under casual magnification. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Damaged coins are usually tossed aside by dealers. Scratches, corrosion, discoloration, those are typically red flags. But for the 1964 Jefferson Nickel, a damaged appearance could mask something much more valuable. Striking anomalies. There are known examples of this coin being struck off-center, on defective planchets, or with clash marks where two dies struck each other without a planchet between them, leaving ghostly imprints of Monticello on Jefferson's face. That kind of damage? That's not a problem. That's potential gold. One such example surfaced in 2021. A collector bought a handful of nickels at a flea market for $5. Among them was a grimy 1964 Jefferson nickel with weird ridges on the rim and a slightly skewed portrait. Thinking it was just damaged, he almost tossed it. But under closer inspection, it was confirmed as a Betch misaligned die strike, Oris, and sold for ECG's $378,000 wanted auction. That's the kind of moment that gives collectors goosebumps. Even more rare are the full steps varieties. These are coins where the Monticello building steps on the reverse are fully visible and uninterrupted. Striking full steps requires an unusually precise strike with fresh dies and clean planchets. Out of the over 1,001,964 nickels made, only a microscopic percentage have these full steps. If you've got one, even in average circulated condition, you're looking at $25,000 to $45,000. If it's uncirculated, with damage that doesn't affect the steps, that value soars past $100,000. Now, imagine a full step specimen combined with a double die or off-metal error. That's where we cross into 400,000 plus some territory. Let's not forget one of the wildest stories in nickel collecting. An alleged 1964 Jefferson Nickel struck on a Sauce silver planche. The U.S. Mint was phasing out silver content in coins, and some leftover blanks from previous years were mistakenly used to strike nickels. Only a few of these have ever surfaced. If authenticated, these transitional errors are considered unicorns in the coin world. Values have reached $500,000 or more, depending on condition, authentication, and auction frenzy. Even damaged coins can contain these kinds. Just when you thought your spare change couldn't possibly get more surprising, the 1963 Jefferson Nickel shows up like a sleeping giant, and this one, circulated, worn, and showing a bold date font, might look like it's worth a dime at best. But don't be fooled, because this coin, when hiding the right secrets, can command values that don't just surprise you, they leave you speechless. We're talking $300,000 or more. Yes, even in circulated condition. Let that sink in for a moment. You could be holding a coin that went through vending machines, laundromats, gas stations, and still, if it carries the right error, the right strike, the right date variation, it could flip your entire financial picture on its head. Let's rewind to 1963. It was a year of transition in America. The economy was booming, the space race was heating up, and John F. Kennedy was still president. The Jefferson Nickel that year may have seemed like just another pocket filler, common, abundant, even forgettable. Oversetter, 175 million. Were minted in Philadelphia, and another 276 million. In Denver, that's more than such as 450 million nickels, flooding the market that year. So what makes one of them worth as much as a Lamborghini? It starts with the design Aris Felix Schlag's portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse hadn't changed since its introduction in 1938. On the reverse, Monticello, his elegant Virginia home. But in 1963, something strange began happening with the dies used in certain batches. Some coins struck that year feature what collectors now call the bold date variety, a noticeably thicker, sharper font used for the year 1963. The numbers appear slightly more elevated, bolder, and have crisper lines than usual. And while this might sound like a minor difference, in the coin collecting world, that's exactly the kind of detail that separates pocket change from treasure. This bold font anomaly is incredibly subtle unless you're looking closely. Many dealers didn't catalog it until decades later. And now, collectors are scrambling to locate these pieces, especially in circulated condition where they were long overlooked and possibly underappreciated. One man in Pennsylvania found a worn-out 1963 nickel in a junk coin bin. The coin had clear wear on Jefferson's face, and the Monticello steps were barely visible. But that bold date stood out. The coin was submitted to PCGS and authenticated as a rare early die state with strong bold digits and minor doubling on the obverse. It later sold for $312,500 at a private auction. Now think about how many 1963 nickels might have passed through your hands over the years. That change you threw into the tip jar, or the nickel you ignored at the bottom of your drawer. What if one of them had that bold date? What if you just never looked? Even more exciting is the possibility of double die obverse errors, where parts of the date, Jefferson's eye, or the words "In God We Trust" show doubling from a misalignment during the hubbing process. These coins in circulated condition have fetched prices ranging from $5,000 to $50,000, depending on how dramatic the doubling is. Combine that with a bold date, and you're now in six-figure territory. But let's push further. Some of the most explosive 1963 nickels are Haas or off-metal errors. Coins accidentally struck on planchets intended for foreign coins or other U.S. denominations. One example believed to be struck on a copper nickel-clad dime planchet was sold for over years $350,000. The coin was noticeably smaller in diameter and lighter in weight, but otherwise had full 1963 Jefferson features. It was found in a circulated state with scuff marks and rim damage. But those surface defects didn't matter. The error was so rare, it demanded a historic price. And then there are full steps, varieties, even in circulated condition. If the steps of Monticello on the reverse are even partially preserved, say 4 out of the 6 steps are clearly defined, it could be enough to push values into $10,000 to $40,000 range. But here's where things get crazy. If a coin has full steps, the bold date variety, and even the slightest doubling, that's a $400,000 coin. Easy. Collectors are now also obsessing over RPMS, size, repunched mint marks. On 1963 D nickels, some coins show a small secondary D slightly to the right or below the main mint mark. These coins can pull into $7,000 to $20,000. And in rare cases, if tied to other anomalies like full steps or bold date fonts, they skyrocket past $100,000. And don't even get us started on striking anomalies. Coins that were struck off,